Mira walked slowly into the wide training hall with her head lowered. She wore an old jacket that was clearly different from everyone else's clean and polished uniforms. The jacket had one sleeve burned and the fabric was rough in many places. It was stitched by hand and looked too old for such a place. Mira pulled it tighter around her shoulders, even though the weather was warm. The hall was filled with new recruits who had come to learn discipline, teamwork, and skills that could shape their futures. Most of them were dressed in neat clothes, ready to prove themselves. Mira, however, did not care about showing off. She was only here to complete her training and follow the path she had chosen for herself. But the moment she stepped inside, whispers began to circle the hall. A boy with a bright scarf around his neck leaned toward his friend and said with a grin, "Look at that jacket. Did she pull it out of a fire pit?" His friend laughed quietly, trying not to be noticed by the instructor. Another recruit, a tall girl with sharp eyes, added, "Maybe she doesn't know this is a professional training center, not a secondhand shop." The group around her chuckled softly. Mira heard every word, but she kept walking until she found a seat at the back corner. She placed her small bag on the floor and sat down, keeping her eyes forward. Her silence made the laughter grow stronger. Some thought she was shy, others thought she was strange, and a few thought she was simply weak. The instructor entered soon after. His name was Aaron, and he was known for being strict but fair. The hall became quiet as he started the roll call. When he finally reached Mira's name, she lifted her head and answered with a calm, steady voice. Aaron glanced at her for a moment, noticing the burned jacket, but he said nothing and continued. The first part of the training began. Aaron explained the drills, and the recruits were asked to follow his movements. Most rushed to impress him by moving quickly, showing off their strength. Mira, on the other hand, moved with quiet focus. Her steps were slower but exact. Every turn, every stretch, every balance was precise. She wasn't the fastest, but she was steady like flowing water. At first, the others laughed again, whispering about her jacket and her slow movements. But as time passed, a few started noticing something different. While others made mistakes in their rush, Mira rarely missed a step. Her control and calmness stood out in the middle of all the noise. During the break, groups of recruits gathered together. Mira sat by herself, sipping water from a plain bottle. Two girls nearby whispered while looking at her. "Why doesn't she just throw away that jacket?" one said. "Maybe it's all she has," the other replied with a small laugh. Mira heard them clearly, but she didn't answer. She only adjusted the jacket once more, making sure it stayed on her shoulders. Beneath that burned fabric was something she had never shown in public. On her shoulder was a mark, a tattoo in the shape of a trident, inked with careful lines and deep meaning. The jacket was her shield, hiding that mark from everyone. To them, it was just an old piece of cloth. To her, it was protection for a story too large to share. She knew one day, whether she wanted or not, the truth behind the jacket would be revealed. But not today. The day's training ended and the recruits were dismissed. Some left in groups, laughing and talking about their plans. Mira walked alone, her steps slow but firm. She could still hear the words spoken about her jacket echoing in her ears, but they didn't hurt her. She had carried heavier burdens before. She had walked through places where silence meant survival, and where the burned jacket was the only thing that kept her going. No one in the hall could understand that. For now, she chose silence. For now, she let them mock. But in the depth of her calm eyes, there was something unshakable, something that no laughter could erase. Because Mira knew the jacket was not just burned cloth. It was the cover of a secret, and when that secret came to light, those who mocked her would not be laughing anymore. The next morning, the training hall was bright with sunlight streaming through tall windows. The recruits gathered early, some still yawning, others already talking excitedly about what new lessons they might learn. Mira entered quietly as always, her burned jacket draped over her shoulders. The moment she walked in, a few eyes turned to her again. The whispers had not stopped since yesterday. "She really wore that jacket again," one boy said softly to his friend. "Maybe she doesn't have any pride," another girl laughed. "Or maybe she just likes attention." Mira ignored their words. She placed her bag down and stood ready for instructions. She had no need to explain herself to anyone. Aaron, the instructor, entered soon after, carrying a clipboard. His voice was strong and clear as he greeted the recruits. "Today we will focus on teamwork. You will not succeed alone. You must learn to trust each other." The recruits straightened, eager to begin. Aaron divided them into groups of 4 and explained a set of challenges. They were not about speed or strength, but about coordination. They had to lift heavy blocks together, balance them while moving, and place them carefully at a marked spot. If even one person was careless, the whole group would fail. Mira was placed in a group with 3 others: the tall girl with sharp eyes named Lena, the boy with the bright scarf named Rian, and another recruit named Tomas. None of them were happy with the arrangement. "Great," Ryan muttered, looking at Mira's jacket. "We're going to lose before we even start." Lena crossed her arms. "Just don't slow us down." Mira didn't respond. She only nodded politely. The challenge began. Each group hurried to lift their block. Some groups struggled because everyone pulled in different directions. Mira's group was no different at first. Ryan tried to lead, pulling the block too quickly while Lena complained about his grip. Thomas became nervous and nearly dropped his side. Amid the noise, Mira stayed calm. She adjusted her hands and spoke in a steady, clear voice. "Wait, lift together. 1, 2, 3. Her tone was so calm that the others paused for a moment. Almost without realizing, they followed her count. The block rose steadily this time. Mira continued, "Now slow steps. Keep it balanced." The group moved forward, guided by her steady rhythm. At first, Rian looked annoyed, but when he saw the block was no longer tilting, he kept quiet. Lena also stopped complaining, realizing Mira's instructions worked. Step by step, they carried the block across the hall and placed it down perfectly on the marked spot. Aaron, who was observing from a distance, raised his eyebrows slightly. He had noticed something others hadn't. The quiet girl with the burned jacket had managed to bring her group together with simple words and calmness. The second round began with an even larger block. This time, without hesitation, the group turned to Mira. She repeated her steady count, and again they moved in rhythm. Other groups rushed, dropped blocks, and had to start over. Mira's group completed the task smoothly, surprising everyone. During the break, Rian finally spoke, but his voice was different from before. "You're actually good at this." Mira gave a small smile, but didn't say much. Lena looked at her jacket again, but this time her eyes were less mocking and more curious. Thomas simply nodded in respect. By the end of the day, Aaron called the recruits together. "Remember," he said, "strength is important, but strength without balance is useless. Some of you learned today that calmness and patience can be stronger than rushing." His gaze lingered briefly on Mira before he dismissed the group. As the recruits left, Lena walked near Mira and asked, "Why do you always wear that old jacket? Don't you feel uncomfortable when people laugh at it?" Mira looked at her for a moment. Her voice was soft but steady. "This jacket is not just cloth. It holds memories that remind me who I am. I don't expect others to understand. I only expect myself not to forget." Lena was silent after that. She didn't mock Mira again that day. When Mira returned to her small dorm room, she carefully folded the jacket and placed it beside her bed. She touched the burned sleeve gently. The memory of the day it burned still lived in her heart, but so did the reason she had kept it all these years. She knew tomorrow would bring new challenges, new whispers, and perhaps new tests of patience. But she also knew something deeper, that her strength was not in loud words or fancy clothes. It was in the quiet control she carried within, and while the others still saw only a burned jacket, they had begun to feel the calm power hidden behind it. The third day of training began earlier than usual. The recruits gathered outside on the field where the morning air was cool and fresh. The sun was only beginning to rise, painting the sky with shades of gold. Aaron, the instructor, stood in front of them with his arms behind his back. "Today we'll test your patience and endurance," he announced. "You will walk a long distance together. Along the way you will face obstacles that require both strength and balance. Work as a team. Do not leave anyone behind." The recruits exchanged glances. A long walk with challenges sounded tiring, but many were eager to prove themselves. Mira adjusted her jacket and stood ready, as quiet as ever. The group set off on the path. At first everyone was full of energy. They walked quickly, laughing and talking, trying to show who was the strongest. But soon the ground became uneven. They had to climb over logs, cross shallow streams, and carry small loads along the way. The quick laughter faded into heavy breathing. Rian, the boy with the bright scarf, began to struggle after an hour. His scarf caught on a branch and he stumbled. "This is harder than it looks," he muttered. Lena rolled her eyes but helped him free his scarf. Thomas moved slowly but steadily, while Mira walked calmly, her steps even and unhurried. Whenever the group faced a challenge, Mira spoke in her soft, steady way. One step at a time. Don't rush. Balance first. Her words seemed simple, yet they always helped the group stay together. Without realizing it, the others started listening to her more than anyone else. At one stream crossing, Lena almost slipped on a rock. Mira reached out and steadied her, still holding her burned jacket close. Lena looked at her and whispered, "Thanks." There was no laughter in her tone this time, only genuine respect. Hours passed. The sun rose higher and the recruits grew tired. Some complained, others grew quiet. But Mira remained calm. Even when her jacket caught on a thorn bush, tearing slightly at the edge, she didn't frown. She carefully pulled it free and continued walking. Rian noticed the tear and chuckled weakly. That jacket is really not made for this kind of training. Mira glanced at him and smiled faintly. Maybe not, but it has lasted longer than many things. Her answer surprised him. For the first time, he didn't know what to say back. When the group finally reached the resting point, everyone collapsed onto the grass, exhausted. Mira sat quietly under a tree, adjusting her jacket again. The sleeve had slipped slightly, and for a brief moment, a dark mark could be seen on her shoulder. It was shaped like a trident, 3 sharp lines spreading upward, drawn with perfect precision. The mark was clear, bold, and unlike any tattoo the recruits had ever seen. Tomas, sitting nearby, noticed it first. His eyes widened slightly, but before he could say anything, Mira pulled her jacket back into place. She didn't look at him, but her calmness showed that she knew he had seen it. The air grew quiet between them. Tomas wanted to ask about it, but something in Mira's expression told him not to. Instead, he simply nodded to himself and turned his attention back to the group. Later, as they began the return walk, Tomas walked beside her. He spoke softly so the others couldn't hear. "That mark, is it important?" Mira looked at him, her eyes steady. "Every mark has a story. Some stories are not ready to be told." Tomas respected her answer and said no more, but the image of the trident stayed in his mind. It didn't look like something ordinary. It looked like a sign of belonging, a symbol connected to something larger. By the time the recruits returned to the training center, they were too tired to talk much. Aaron congratulated them for completing the endurance task and reminded them that true strength was not only physical but also mental. Mira listened quietly, her jacket once again covering the secret on her shoulder. That night, while the others slept in the dorms, Mira sat by her bed with the jacket folded neatly. She touched the fabric near the burned sleeve, then glanced at her shoulder where the trident mark rested beneath the cloth. The memory of when she first received that mark filled her mind. It wasn't just a tattoo. It was a promise, a connection, and a reminder of the path she had once walked, a path none of the other recruits could even imagine. She knew the time would come when the truth behind it would no longer stay hidden. For now, she chose silence, but deep inside, she wondered how long her quiet strength would be enough to keep the secret safe. The following day, the recruits entered the hall with mixed feelings. Some were still tired from the long endurance walk, while others were excited to see what new lessons awaited them. Mira arrived as usual, her burned jacket wrapped around her shoulders. The whispers had grown softer compared to the first day, but the curious glances remained. Aaron stood at the front, his expression serious. Today is not about speed, not about carrying weight, and not even about balance. Today is about trust. The recruits exchanged puzzled looks. Trust? They weren't sure what that meant in training. Aaron continued, "You will be blindfolded and guided through a path by your partner. One of you will walk without sight while the other will give directions. If you do not trust each other, you will fail." Mira was paired with Rian, the boy who once mocked her the most. He frowned at first when Aaron called their names, but there was no way to refuse. He stood beside her, holding the blindfold in his hand. "Don't make me regret this," he muttered. Mira didn't reply. She simply tied the blindfold over her eyes and stood calmly. Her posture was steady, as if she didn't fear the idea of walking blind at all. The course began. Ryan was supposed to guide her through the obstacles: wooden poles, ropes on the ground, and narrow steps. At first, his instructions were rushed and unclear. "Left, no, wait, right, careful." His voice carried panic, and Mira nearly tripped. "Speak clearly," Mira said softly. "One step at a time." I will follow. Her calmness surprised him.
Taking a deep breath, he tried again.
All right. 1 step forward. Now a little to the left. Good. Now lift your foot higher. There's a rope. This time Mira moved smoothly. Step by step, she followed his voice without hesitation. It was as if she trusted him completely, even though he had given her every reason not to. By the middle of the course, Ryan's nervousness started to fade. He realized Mira never doubted his words. She trusted every instruction, and that trust made him more confident. His voice grew steadier, his directions sharper. Straight ahead, stop. Now 2 steps right. Yes, perfect. Finally, Mira reached the end of the course without a single mistake. When she removed the blindfold, Rian looked at her with new eyes. He was almost embarrassed. You really trusted me. Even when I wasn't sure of myself, Mira smiled gently. Trust grows when you believe in someone more than they believe in themselves. Sometimes that is enough. Rian didn't know what to say. For the first time since training began, he felt respect instead of judgment. Later, it was Ryan's turn to be blindfolded while Mira gave instructions. Her voice was calm and steady, never rushing, never confusing. With her guidance, he too completed the course safely. By the end, he realized he had learned more than just how to give directions. He had learned how it felt to rely on someone else. Around them, other groups were not as smooth. Many shouted at each other, arguing when mistakes were made. Some failed the task because no one wanted to listen. Aaron observed quietly, noticing which pairs worked together and which pairs fell apart. When the exercise ended, Aaron addressed the group. Trust is not built in a moment, but it can be destroyed in one. Today, some of you discovered that trust is not about control, but about calm guidance and belief. His eyes briefly met Mira's again, though he said nothing more. That evening, as the recruits sat together in the dining area, something unusual happened. Ryan pulled out a chair beside Mira and sat down. The other recruits noticed, whispering quietly, but he ignored them. You know, he said, lowering his voice, I thought that jacket made you weak, but now I think it hides something strong. You don't get shaken by what people say and you never rush. It's different. Mira looked at him with her calm eyes. Strength does not always shout. Sometimes it only listens. For the first time, Ryan laughed softly, not to mock her, but in genuine respect. I think I'm starting to understand that. Mira didn't answer, but a faint smile touched her lips. The burned jacket was still wrapped around her, hiding the trident mark on her shoulder. Few had seen it, and fewer understood its meaning. But slowly, without revealing anything, Mira was changing how the recruits around her saw her. Piece by piece, the mockery was turning into respect. And though her secret remained hidden, the day was moving closer when it could no longer stay that way. Days passed at the training center, and the recruits were slowly changing. At first, many of them had mocked Mira for her old burned jacket, but now they were noticing something different. She was not loud, but her calm strength influenced those around her. She was not the fastest, but her steady rhythm helped her team succeed. Bit by bit, laughter had turned into curiosity, and curiosity was slowly turning into respect. One morning, Aaron announced, Today is important. A senior officer will visit to observe your progress. He will watch your drills, your teamwork, and your discipline. Do not think of impressing him with noise or show. Impress him with focus. The recruits straightened immediately. A senior officer meant higher eyes on them, perhaps even opportunities for the future. The air buzzed with nervous energy. Mira, however, remained calm as always, her jacket resting on her shoulders. When the visitors arrived, the hall grew silent. Among them was a general, a tall man with silver hair and sharp eyes. His presence was enough to make everyone stand straighter. His name was General Kale, and his reputation was known even outside the center. He walked slowly along the line of recruits, observing with quiet seriousness. The drills began. Groups performed exercises, lifted weights, crossed obstacle courses, and showed their teamwork. The general watched silently, speaking only a few words to Aaron now and then. When it was Mira's group's turn, something subtle shifted. Mira led her team with the same calm instructions she always used. 1 step together, slow down, balance first. Her group, which once argued and stumbled, now moved in perfect rhythm. They carried heavy blocks smoothly, crossed balance beams without falling, and completed the tasks without rushing. General Kale's sharp eyes lingered on Mira longer than on anyone else. It wasn't her speed or strength that caught his attention. It was the quiet control she had over her group, the way her voice calmed even the most nervous recruit. After the drills ended, the recruits were allowed to rest. Excited whispers filled the air as many wondered what the general thought of them. Mira sat alone in the corner, her jacket around her shoulders, drinking water from her simple bottle. Then, unexpectedly, General Kyle walked toward her. The hall grew silent as the recruits noticed. A general rarely spoke directly to a recruit, especially one who was not the fastest or the strongest. "You," Kyle said, his deep voice steady. "What is your name?" "Mira," she answered calmly, standing up with respect. He studied her for a moment. "Your jacket. Why do you wear it here? It does not match the discipline of this hall." The recruits held their breath. They expected Mira to stutter or struggle, but she did not. Her voice remained soft but firm. "This jacket is old, yes, but it carries memories that remind me who I am. I train not to look perfect, but to stay true to myself." The general's sharp eyes softened slightly, though only for a moment. He nodded once and walked away without another word. The recruits stared in shock. None of them had expected Mira to speak with such steady courage. Later, when the general had left, whispers filled the hall again. But this time they were different. "Did you see how she answered him?" One boy whispered. "She wasn't scared at all," another said. Ryan, sitting nearby, spoke more firmly. "That's just Mira. She doesn't need to be loud to be strong." For Mira, the day felt like any other. She returned to her dorm quietly, folded her jacket as she always did, and touched the burned sleeve with care. But in her heart, she felt something changing. The trident mark on her shoulder seemed to burn with memory, though it remained hidden beneath the cloth. She remembered the day she first received it, the promise tied to it, and the eyes of those who once gave it to her. The recruits only saw her jacket. The general had only asked about its appearance. But one day someone would notice the truth beneath it. That truth was not ready to be revealed. Yet Mira knew the moment was coming closer, step by step, day by day. For now she carried her quiet strength and her hidden mark, waiting for the day when silence would no longer be enough. The training center felt different after the general's visit. For the first time, many recruits looked at Mira not with mockery but with curiosity. They remembered how she had spoken calmly to General Kale without fear or hesitation. Some still wondered about her burned jacket, but fewer dared to laugh at it now. One evening, after a long day of practice, the recruits gathered in the dining hall. The air was filled with chatter and clinking dishes. Ryan sat across from Mira, still studying her jacket with puzzled eyes. Lena and Thomas soon joined them, forming a group that others found unusual. "You know," Ryan began slowly, "the way the general looked at you, it was like he recognized something." Lena nodded thoughtfully. "And that tattoo I saw for just a second during training. It looked special, not like something random." Mira paused, her spoon resting in her hand. She looked at them with calm eyes. "Every mark has a story, but not all stories are ready to be told." Thomas leaned forward. "But someday you will tell it?" "Someday," Mira answered softly, then returned to her food. The group didn't push her further, but their curiosity only grew. Over the next few days, the recruits trained harder than ever. The instructors increased the difficulty of the tasks, testing both strength and patience. Many grew frustrated when they made mistakes, but Mira always moved with steady calmness. Even when she stumbled, she rose quietly and continued without complaint. Slowly, others began to copy her style, learning that silence and patience often brought better results than rushing and shouting. Yet the whispers about her jacket and hidden tattoo never fully stopped. Some recruits whispered that she had once been part of something secret. Others thought the burned jacket was from a dangerous past. Mira never confirmed nor denied anything. One night, as the recruits rested in their dorms, Aaron walked through the hallways, checking on each room. He noticed Mira sitting by the window, her jacket folded neatly on her lap. The moonlight fell on her calm face. "You are different from the others," Aaron said quietly. Mira looked at him but did not answer. He continued, "You move with the discipline of someone who has trained before. And that jacket, it may hide more than cloth. I do not ask questions, but I notice things." Her lips curved into the faintest smile. "Sometimes silence is safer than answers." Aaron studied her for a long moment, then nodded. "Perhaps, but remember this. One day silence may not protect you anymore. When he walked away, Mira touched the jacket gently. She knew his words were true. The next morning, during outdoor training, the recruits were given a new challenge. They had to climb a tall wooden wall together as a team. Many struggled, slipping and falling back down. Arguments broke out among groups about who should climb first, who should push, and who should pull. Mira's group waited quietly. Then she spoke, her voice calm. "We don't need to rush. One helps the other, step by step." "I will go last," the others agreed. Thomas climbed first, with Rian pushing and Lena guiding. Slowly they made progress. When it was Mira's turn, she moved steadily, using the ropes and ledges carefully. At one point, her jacket caught again on a rough plank, slipping slightly off her shoulder. This time, more than one recruit saw the Trident mark beneath. A hush fell over those watching. The tattoo was too perfect, too symbolic to be ordinary. "Mira," someone whispered. "What is that mark?" She pulled the jacket back into place and reached the top without answering. Standing on the wall, she looked down at them with her usual calm expression. "It is only a reminder," she said softly. The recruits exchanged glances. A reminder of what? None of them knew. But the mystery around her only deepened. That evening, the whispers spread quietly through the dorms. "Did you see her tattoo?" It looked important. "Do you think she was part of something before she came here?" No wonder the general looked at her like that. Mira, alone in her room, heard the faint murmurs through the walls. She folded her jacket carefully, covering the Trident mark once more. Her thoughts drifted back to the day she had first received it, the promise tied to it and the reason her jacket had burned. Her secret was no longer as hidden as before. Piece by piece, it was slipping into the open. And though she had stayed silent so far, Mira knew the moment of truth was moving closer. The Trident mark would not remain in shadows forever. The training ground buzzed with quiet tension after the Trident tattoo had been noticed. Though Mira never explained, the recruits could not forget the sight of the sharp three-pronged mark on her shoulder. They spoke in hushed voices during meals and corridors, even while training, but no one dared ask her directly again. Aaron, the instructor, carried himself with even more seriousness. He did not mention the tattoo, yet his sharp eyes followed Mira more often now. It was as if he expected something unusual to happen. That evening, long after most recruits had gone to sleep, footsteps echoed in the hallway. Mira sat by her small desk, her burned jacket folded neatly nearby. She looked up when she heard the sound. The door opened slowly, and to her surprise, General Kale stepped inside. The general's presence filled the small room. He did not speak immediately, but his eyes fell on the folded jacket and then on Mira. For a long moment, silence stretched between them. "You have kept it," Kale finally said, his voice steady but heavy with meaning. Mira lowered her gaze. "It is a reminder. Some reminders cannot be thrown away." Kale walked closer, his boots echoing softly against the floor. "And the mark? Do you still carry its meaning, or is it only ink on skin now?" Mira raised her head slowly. Her calm eyes met his. "A mark is only a promise, General. A promise is alive as long as the heart remembers." Kale studied her carefully. For a moment, his stern expression softened, almost like an old memory had returned to him. Then he turned slightly, as if not wanting to show too much emotion. "You should not be here, Mira," he said quietly. "Not among recruits who know nothing of your past. They see only what they want to see," Mira replied gently. "To them, I'm just another trainee with a burned jacket." Kale's jaw tightened. "But you are not. You never were." Before Mira could answer, Aaron appeared at the doorway. He looked startled to see the general there, but quickly bowed in respect. "General, is everything all right?" Kale straightened, his usual firm expression returning. "Everything is fine. I was only checking on the recruits." Aaron's eyes flicked briefly to Mira, then back to Kale. He said nothing, but the silence between them was filled with unspoken questions. When the general finally left, Mira sat quietly for a long time, her thoughts deep. She knew Kale's visit would not remain a secret, and she was right. The next day, whispers ran through the camp that the general had personally visited one of the recruits' rooms. No one knew why, but everyone guessed it was because of Mira. During training, Ryan finally approached her. His voice was low, almost hesitant. "Mira, you don't have to tell us everything. But are you one of us, or are you something else?" Mira looked at him calmly. "I am here training like you. That is enough for now." Her words gave no answer, yet they carried weight. Rian nodded slowly, not pressing further. Later that evening, Lena whispered to Thomas, "It is strange. She hides so much, yet I feel like she carries something important. Something bigger than this place," Thomas agreed. "Maybe that's why the general looks at her differently. Maybe he knows who she really is." As days passed, the recruits began to change. The laughter at Mira's burned jacket faded. Instead, they started to watch her movements, copy her calm approach, and listen when she gave quiet advice. Even those who once mocked her now treated her with a cautious respect. But the mystery only grew stronger. One night, Mira stood outside beneath the stars, the cool breeze brushing her face. She touched her shoulder where the trident lay hidden beneath the fabric. She remembered the day she had earned it, the day she had made a vow. The sound of footsteps pulled her from her thoughts. It was Aaron again. He stood beside her for a moment without speaking. Then he said quietly, "I don't know what you carry, Mira, but I know one thing, you carry it with dignity. And that is rare." Mira gave a small nod. "Some weights are not meant to break us. They are meant to shape us." Aaron looked at her with respect, then walked away, leaving her alone under the night sky. Mira closed her eyes. The whispers, the stares, the questions, none of them mattered. She knew the truth of her tattoo, the truth of her jacket, and the promise tied to them both. But deep inside, she also knew this truth would not stay hidden much longer. The time was coming when her past and her present would finally meet. The sun rose early, casting golden light across the training ground. Today was different. Mira could feel it in the air. The whispers about her burned jacket and the brief glimpse of the Trident tattoo had not stopped. But there was something more. A quiet anticipation that even the instructors seemed to sense. Recruits lined up for the morning drill, and Mira joined them, her jacket snug around her shoulders. Her calm presence drew quiet attention. Even Rian and Lena watched her closely, no longer with mockery, only respect and curiosity. Aaron stepped forward, his eyes sharp. "Today a final exercise awaits. This is not only a test of skill, but a test of character. Your leadership, patience, and courage will all be observed." Mira knew that this would be the day her secret could no longer stay hidden. She felt no fear, only quiet determination. The challenge began. Recruits were paired to navigate a complicated obstacle course filled with ropes, balance beams, and climbing walls. Teams stumbled, argued, and fell behind. Mira moved forward with steady steps, guiding her group with calm instructions. Halfway through the course, the wind shifted and a flap of her jacket slipped off her shoulder. For the first time in weeks, the Trident tattoo was fully visible. Its dark lines caught the morning light, sharp and precise. General Kale, who had returned to observe the final exercise, froze in place. His sharp eyes widened as he recognized the mark immediately. Other recruits noticed the momentary pause, but none understood why the general's expression had changed. Mira, unaware of his reaction, continued leading her group. Step by step, she helped them balance over ropes and climb walls. She spoke in her quiet, steady voice. "Together, one step at a time. You can do this." Her group moved like a single unit, perfectly synchronized. When they reached the end, they were the first team to complete the challenge flawlessly. Aaron clapped his hands and nodded, clearly impressed. General Kale approached Mira, his expression unreadable. The other recruits watched in awe, curious and confused. "You carry the mark of the Trident," Kale said quietly, almost as if speaking to himself. "I never expected to see it here." Mira met his eyes, her voice calm. "It has always been with me. I never hide it for myself, only for others. Some things are not ready to be understood until the time is right." Kale's face softened and he nodded slowly. "This mark, it signifies courage, loyalty, and responsibility. Few are chosen for it. Many hide behind masks, but you carry it with honor." The other recruits now realized that Mira's burned jacket was not a sign of weakness, but of her past trials and the promises she had kept. Her quiet strength, patience, and calm leadership were not accidental. They were forged through experience. Ryan stepped forward, unable to contain his curiosity. "Mira, what does it mean? That tattoo, where does it come from?" Mira looked at him and then at the group surrounding her. She took a deep breath. "The Trident mark is a promise to protect, to lead, and to stand strong no matter what comes. I earned it before I came here, and it has guided me every step since." The room fell silent. Every recruit understood then that the burned jacket and the hidden mark were symbols of her journey. It was a story of courage, patience, and quiet power. General Kale stepped back and allowed a small, approving smile. "She is more than a recruit," he said quietly to Aaron. "She carries a legacy, one that few can understand." Mira folded her jacket and touched the burned sleeve lightly, smiling faintly to herself. The whispers, the mockery, and the curiosity were all gone. Respect replaced them. She had stayed true to herself and had carried her secret with dignity until the world was ready to see it. That day, Mira no longer walked among the recruits as the girl with the burned jacket. She walked as a symbol of strength, patience, and courage. A living reminder that appearances can be deceiving, and that true power is often quiet, steady, and unshakable. The Trident tattoo remained hidden under the jacket again, but everyone who had seen it understood the story it told. Mira smiled quietly. The journey was far from over, but she knew one thing clearly. She had earned the respect she deserved, not through words, not through display, but through calm strength and unwavering courage. And from that day on, no one dared to mock the burned jacket again,